How do I trust somebody that continuously gets bigger and bigger as he gets canceled, as he gets arrested? Yeah, I vibe with a lot of the things that he says, but does that make him on our side? Does he have our best interest at heart, or is he playing that character to distract us from all the stuff that's going on in the world with tyranny, economy, food? Confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, sunk cost fallacy, revisionist history. These are four of the many philosophical aspects of life that are on my mind as we enter 2023. I believe social media enhances the effect of these measures by its algorithms and its very existence. Social media is not going anywhere, so we need to figure out how to make the best use of it and stay mentally healthy at the same time. Social media, via its algorithms, creates feedback loops and echo chambers that make it extremely easy to confirm how you feel on a particular matter. At the same time, it disseminates a wide range of information that is very difficult to decipher. You need to consider the source. You need to consider whether this bit of data is edited like a movie or it's completely unfiltered and raw. And I'm telling you, that is not the easiest thing to do, especially when you have so much of it. I believe that in order to become the best versions of ourselves, to really become as intelligent as we can be and give back to the world in the best way possible, we need to constantly be challenging our own beliefs. And it takes a lot of, you got to be humble. You got to be humble. I do it all the time. I'm confident on certain matters, but sometimes I go back to the drawing board and say, hey, why did I feel that way about that person? Why did I feel that way about the situation? And in doing so, you need to find and follow people that may disagree with your initial thought. And you need to follow all different types of people. Most people are in the middle, but follow all sides, extremes, middle. And then you have to say, hey, I was wrong. I might have been misled. I spoke to a friend about this, and now I have a different empathy for that group of people that I didn't even realize I didn't have. That's how we evolve and grow as human beings. So on that note, we're 1 week into 2023 right now, at the moment that I'm speaking. And there are three men that come to mind that I want to talk about. It's not necessarily these three men, but the reaction to these three men. Andrew Tate, Damar Hamlin, and Russell Wilson. Three people that most of us know for all different reasons. I'm somebody that really holds myself accountable to admit my biases up front on any walk of life and then treat it the same way. And I want to be consistent. Sports, like trivial matters, and then let's just say the most important matters in life, like the last few years, or how you feel about firearms, how you feel about certain relationship issues. Be consistent with it. And again, the reaction to these three people really has disproven all those four philosophical points that I mentioned: confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, sunk cost fallacy, revisionist history. It applies to all these guys. And if it applies to these three celebrities, two football players, and one character, it's got to apply to everything. Number one, Andrew Tate. I came across this man a couple years ago. And now we're in 2023. There's like a spectrum of A to Z on this dude. There are people who think he's the ideal man. He's the best of us. He tells it like it is. He's honest. He's got the girls, the body. He can fight. He's James Bond, so to speak. Men want to be him, and women want him. And then you got the side that say he's complete garbage. He's a misogynist. He's a despicable human being capable of horrible crimes, and whatever he was arrested for has got to be true. Where do I stand? Well, let's talk this out. We need to go abstract for a second here. I was born in the 80s. The 1980s, when you think of that, it's got its own certain kind of music. It was the birth of the montage. And it was full of movies that featured overt masculinity and testosterone. You had Rocky, Rambo, John McClane, every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Jean-Claude Van Damme. You had the male hero saving the day, getting the girl, family man. That was the 80s. And then you got television, where you had shows that featured strong paternal figures. Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, The Jeffersons, Family Matters, The Cosby Show. And then the late 80s and 90s hit. And we had Married with Children with Al Bundy. Just a dumbass, very funny, but you watch that show too long, you know, you lose a few brain cells. And then the sitcom started. Ray Romano, Alan Harper's. You had animated shows, Peter Griffin, Homer Simpson. I like to say the OG of the soft beta male husband / father was none other than Earl Sinclair of Dinosaurs. Check out the show Dinosaurs. The way it talked about the world and war and politics and technology with television back in the day, 30 years ago, completely 100% applies to modern day. What an underrated classic that show was. Anyways, Earl Sinclair didn't know how to take care of the household, didn't know how to father, didn't know, like, it was satire, it was funny, but it was really sad. It's cringeworthy sometimes how bad it is, considering what came after it. When you have characters like Ray Romano and Homer Simpson, these dopes. And now we see these kind of characters everywhere, even in traditionally masculine fields. We have comedians like Jimmy Fallon. See what he's been doing lately? We have sports TV radio guys like Mike Greenberg. And commercials, don't get me started on all the commercials with the idiot husbands who don't know how to drive, or, that one direct TV commercials where, a woman's throwing a TV out a 2-story window at a guy because he reportedly did something, but, throwing stuff at a guy, really? You think that's acceptable? So anyway, we have this prism on TV, on technology that is attacking traditional masculinity. At the same time, we have these phrases like toxic masculinity, mansplaining, manspreading, as if it's wrong to just sit there and, sit in a chair. And then we have pornography all over the place, keeping men sedated. Most of it's free. Why? Why does pornography exist? To keep us being able to have a short-term fix to a long-term problem. And now there's OnlyFans. Men are sitting there paying for women to talk to them or show them images or videos of themselves instead of going out in the real world and becoming men. It's lowering our testosterone. However way you want to look at it, there is a thirst, there is a need, a biological and just healthy need for young men and men my age to look up to, emulate, follow, watch someone like Andrew Tate. And Tate, ever the intelligent capitalist, clearly recognized this, and he swooped in there to profit and take advantage of the market. He understood what was going on. He understood supply and demand and figured out a way to capitalize on the attack on masculinity. Join my course. Follow me. Here's my program. Become a man. You can call him a grifter, you can call him a grinder, you can call him a positive influence. Either way, he has a right to do that. There's a phrase in, I think, chemistry class: for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Andrew Tate, I believe, is an overreaction to a systemic problem. You have problems like this over decades, you're going to get guys like Tate. The pendulum has swung too far from one direction to the other. You know, men and women both have testosterone and estrogen. It's just the levels. Obviously, men have far more testosterone, women have far more estrogen. But levels have changed over the past half century. And because men and women complement and offset each other, as men's testosterone has lowered, women's have increased. And I believe all men are supposed to have natural testosterone. And again, it is being robbed from us. We do it to ourselves with porn, OnlyFans. We see it on TV and social media, and it happens in family courts and so on. So let's discuss Tate as a person. Pros and cons. Here are the pros that I could think of. He's an intelligent and successful dude. He's extremely articulate on many key matters, ones that not everyone is able to speak about in a well-versed way, and he's able to do it. He's a master of the English language. He's got great points on positive mindsets, being driven, and setting goals. The fact he can fight, that's certainly a positive as well. And whether you like it or not, he's got strong word of mouth from some very beautiful women. And last but not least, he's got charisma. He's a very entertaining character. He represents somebody who has built himself up and teaches people how to fight to get out of the matrix. He is against the matrix. Or is he? Because that character that he plays could be part of the matrix. That's my first con about him. How do I trust somebody that continuously gets bigger and bigger as he gets canceled, as he gets arrested? Yeah, I vibe with a lot of the things that he says, but does that make him on our side? Does he have our best interest at heart, or is he playing that character to distract us from all the stuff that's going on in the world with tyranny, economy, food, everything else? Is he just playing a part, or is he on our side? We'll see. And on that note, the women who defend him, do they truly mean it? Maybe, but I don't know them. Because he could have paid them off. He admits in videos the way he's treated women, the way he's manipulated them. He's had some harsh things to say about women, unequivocally. I don't agree with him saying women are property. I understand his point about father giving a daughter away, about, you know, the way a man protects a household. I understand that. I just disagree with using that terminology. I disagree with a lot of things he has said and done about women. Some of it's rumors, some of it's been debunked. I don't know. Either way, he is not a misogynist in my viewpoint, but he has made too many incendiary and disrespectful and despicable comments to women. And as someone who loves women, who has friends that are women, who has a daughter, I wouldn't want my daughter dating that dude. I wouldn't trust her with a guy like that based on everything he's represented. And on that note, I know that middle school boys know all about Andrew Tate, which means high school kids certainly do. I really hope elementary kids don't. Parents, do your jobs out there. Now, you think about what parts of Tate's would show up on TikTok. Some of it, positive mindsets, goal setting, being a man. Yeah, some of it. But mostly, I'm pretty sure it's him railing on feminism, talking about how to treat women, how to go out there and get all these monies, car and fame, going out there, F the system. Some of that positive, most of that not positive for that age demographic. These are boys that could definitely have better local leaders and other positive influences on social media, not a guy with the kind of backstory of Andrew Tate. Are they going to take what he says, one of the most Googled guys in 2022, and use it to treat women harshly and wrongly? He can't be a good influence. And on that note, what about family? Where does Andrew Tate fit in when it comes to going out there and being a James Bond lavish character versus being a strong masculine family man? Because the way that we've evolved as a species, guys with the ability of Andrew Tate, they eventually settle down. They have a wife, some kids, and they raise those boys to be men and those women to be women. And that's how we are who we are as a species. That's the building block of America, for instance. That's how you leave a legacy. Men who are the best of us pass on their genes. Women want those guys, and they spread their seeds. Not in a Nick Cannon way, but in a way where, hey, I'm going to have a bunch of kids. Other women want them. But nah, I'm just with this woman. I'm not saying that's right, because in 2023, marriage laws are not the most favorable toward men. Some of that's on men not handling their business in the family, in the bedroom, in life. Some of it is on women having way too many options with social media and maybe settling down with the wrong guy. But, around 4/5 of divorces are initiated by women. So it's understandable that a lot of men, myself included, look at marriage and we're not sure. So I see the point of going out there and doing what Tate does, as long as you're honest about it. It is perfectly okay for a man, even the best of the men, to go out there and say, I am going to be on my own. I'll be with women, but I'm not going to settle down one. That is acceptable. It's also not something to necessarily admire, because if everyone did that, where would we be in a half century from now? So as I think about where I stand on this spectrum of Andrew Tate, I'm in the middle. I appreciate what he does well. I don't appreciate a lot of the comments and actions that he's committed. And, when it comes to philosophy, your opinion on him, a lot of it's going to relate to who you are, your relationship that you've had in the past, whether you're a man or woman, which feedback loop you get. Do you get, are you seeing all his good stuff, all his bad stuff? Or are you seeing a mix? Because for me, I saw a lot of his good stuff, and I had one opinion of him, and now I'm like, okay, it's kind of muddied. And he should be on the internet, by the way. Should not be canceled. We should let everybody air out everything they got to say. It's on us as people to not let the actions of people who don't know us from a hole in the wall to not bother us. We can't get mad. We can't get triggered by people saying something about something that we disagree with. We have to do a better job individually of not letting people like him bother us. I understand. He could say he has said things that I completely disagree with, that I wouldn't want my daughter hearing. But I can't get triggered by that. People can't get triggered to the point where, hey, he's canceled. He can't be in the internet. And just because he is a quote unquote bad guy, and a lot of times, doesn't mean he isn't 100% right when he goes on some of these shows railing against feminism, railing against, the system that is. Again, he could be an actor. He could be a character. but doesn't take away who he is. Did he make a good point? Yes? Okay, great. So I'm about free speech. I'm about say what you want. It's on the parents to protect their kids via the rules at home about what they're actually watching on their phones and seeing on TV. If we start trying to censor everybody who's inflammatory, we're not going to have a lot of pop culture now, are we? We're going to get rid of a lot of rap music. My favorite music of all time, by the way, but not the current stuff. You're going to get rid of a lot of movies, a lot of Netflix shows, certainly. Get rid of cuties. So that's my overall thoughts on Mr. Andrew Tate. Number 2 is Damar Hamlin. Damar suffered a very scary injury on Monday, January 2nd on national TV, Monday Night Football. And he had a heart attack on the field. And I personally hope he has a full recovery and he's back to what he was before. Now, as soon as it happened, the first thing I said was, oh my God, I hope this guy's okay. But I saw other players crying, and I've never seen that before. You've seen people really upset. A guy's got a torn ACL or a broken ankle, a broken leg. But these players were, many of them, crying. And that's when I knew, okay, this is a life and death situation. And within a half hour, I go on social media and I start seeing some things and I'm like, oh boy, here comes back everything that I was thinking in terms of philosophy. Damar Hamlin, you got to think about who he is. He is I believe, 24 years old, NFL athlete. If you lined up 1,000 people, Damar Hamlin is in better overall shape in terms of speed, agility, health, body, everything than 998 of those people. Maybe 999, maybe 997. That 99 number gets used way too much. Oh, 99% of this or 99% of that. That number gets used too much. In this case, it's not an overstatement. He is a 24-year-old football player. He is in his athletic prime. And I've played against people who are either former players or they played D1 ball. And these guys they make me feel old and slow. And this is an NFL player at 24. These types of injuries are extremely, extremely rare. And there were different doctors saying different things, but football players, all to a man, said, we've never seen this before on the field. This is not like a football injury. They all admitted that. All the commentators said, this is weird. That was just a normal hit. Well, it was a serious hit. He's got pads on, but it was a collision. Football is a violent game, and people will unfortunately get hurt. But the discourse around it quickly, within a couple of days, I knew exactly where it was going. Because you see, when you're on one side, you want to confirm it. And when you've made a decision, you have sunk cost fallacy. So I went to Google and I typed in Damar Hamlin and the 7-letter V word. And the first few results, unfortunately, were just as I expected. The first few articles stated, hey, if you even associate the medicine in the last couple of years with what happened to Damar, that's insensitive, it's evil, it's vile, it's disgusting, and how dare you, you're a conspiracy theorist, get your tinfoil hat back on and, go somewhere else. And I expected to see it, but it was sad because we're in 2023 now. That's not open-minded thinking. That's not discourse. That's propaganda. That's agenda. That's divisive. And that is not anything that I represent or I think is good with the world. And it got me thinking of 2 points, because then I went to Twitter, saw some discourse there, thought about it myself. And the 2 key thoughts I had was, number one, the people that had an issue with bringing up the medicine and Damar Hamlin in the same sentence were the same individuals, by and large, that required and therefore asked people, hey, what's your status over the past couple years? So those people said, hey, in order to enter this restaurant, or this game, or this event, we need to ask you for this, and we want everyone there to be like this, like us. But now the shoe's on the other foot, and it's not okay to ask that question. Well, that's cognitive dissonance. That's also, sunk cost fallacy, because if you've taken the medicine, you obviously want to believe. You wouldn't have taken it if you didn't think it was the right thing to do, unless you were coerced. And then if you took it, you're like, well, I got skin in the game. And listen, we all got skin in the game, regardless of how you feel about this, regardless of how many shots you've taken. We all have loved ones who have and haven't, especially have. We all have loved ones. So we're all in this together. But again, for that reason, we need to be able to say Damar Hamlin and that in the same sentence to figure out, hey, what made this incredibly athletic 24-year-old NFL player collapse like that? What were his underlying issues? And for it to just get dismissed outright is a little scary, because why, again, later this week, I haven't heard any underlying issues he's had. They're trying to wipe it under the rug, it looks like. And then a doctor came on TV, calls himself Tony. He said the same thing. People can shout complete nonsense, misinformation, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory. No, it's not a conspiracy theory, Tony. You know what else Tony said? Tony said that a big, strong person's shoulder went right into his heart. Big, strong person. Okay, so football players say, man, this is just a routine hit. It's a normal play. It's a violent game, but hey, it's a normal play. But good old Tony, he knows better. Just like he knew better the last couple of years. He was either wrong or he was misleading us, one of the two. No in between. And he also happened to say that myocarditis is far more prevalent due to COVID, not due to any medicine. But if you go back and look at all the receipts, you go back and look at all the documentation, that was never stated as a symptom of COVID. It's only since the medicine has been introduced. So again, you have people who feel one way are going to say, hey, no, COVID evolved. You have other people saying, well, yeah, but did COVID evolve, or are you just masking possible issues, long-term issues to your immune system that was caused by the medicine? Depends what side you're on. But when one side is open-minded and the other is saying, can't be that, no way, misinformation, conspiracy, nonsense. Okay, that's a tell. That's not a way to win an argument here. We're in a judge. We're in a jury. Is that what you're going to say on a stand? Is that what you're going to say? No, you're not, because you're going to lose. You're not going to win by calling the other side's names, discrediting them outright, and not even looking at an overall factor. Okay, so what did happen to him? We don't know. Very unlikely that it was a football play. Very unlikely it was medicine. Maybe. But again, even if the medicine is 1 in 100,000, 1 in 50,000, 1 in 5,000, again, nobody wants it to affect a loved one, but you have to be able to have that conversation. And to just dismiss it outright is way, way too far. And that speaks to, well, what are they hiding here? And number two, that was my long-winded number one there. My number one is, hey, why are those same people who cared so much about your status a couple of years ago now saying, oh, you can't bring it up? That's part of that whole umbrella there. Okay. And number two is, how did those deaths, the unfortunate deaths that took place during the pandemic, how were they counted? Remember, was it because of COVID or with COVID? What is this now? Is it with the medicine or because of the medicine? Well, again, shoes on the other foot, turnabout is fair play. Regardless of how you feel, regardless of how many you've had, doesn't matter. People could have cancer and they could be on their last few days of life and they could contract COVID. They could pass away, unfortunately. And then was that counted as a COVID death? Possibly. I don't know. I wasn't there. Anecdotal and statistical studies show that, yes, it was. But I'm not citing all those sources now. The bottom line is it could have happened. If you say, no, but it's impossible, Michael, you're out of your mind. Here we go back to point number one. No, not out of my mind. It's a possibility. If you really don't think that's a possibility, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm being extremely diplomatic about this, but we can start talking about the funding to the hospitals and everything like that. I'm not going there. All I'm saying is it's obviously a possibility that there was some deaths that were counted as COVID deaths that weren't necessarily because of COVID. It was with COVID. So now when there are people throughout, we see it on sports field throughout the world, again, not that often, but often enough on the news, random deaths, heart attacks up, certain signs in doctor's offices. Hey, we need to check your, your blood pressure and your vitals before you play sports. These things all exist. This is such a delicate and divisive issue. And depending on what side you're on, you are going to get different data because social media is designed to keep us divided, to keep us in our own echo chambers. So if you do believe in the medicine, then you are going to get a lot of information that says, hey, this is where it works. Here's the studies that shows that it works. And you're not going to see a lot of the negative impacts that could happen because either you don't want to or those sites aren't going to come up to you. And I think it's okay to admit that, hey, if you believed in the medicine and you had it, you're somewhat fearful, like, hey, I don't want to hear this could possibly connected, this Damar guy. I don't want to hear that's connected to me because I don't want that to be me. And so anyone who disagrees with me, yeah, some people on this side are going to call them names. They're going to call them crazy. They're going to call them, spitting misinformation and complete nonsense. Okay. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right to call people names because you're fearful. At the same time, people on the other side who disagree with the medicine, they follow all the side effects. So they are naturally going to think, oh, anytime it happens, it's because of that, when that's not necessarily the case. Correlation doesn't necessarily equal causality. Some of these people were ostracized from their jobs, from their friends, from their family. So it's still very important to them. Does that make it right for them to call the other side sheep? No, that doesn't help either. And I think some people on this side have negative confirmation bias, meaning they don't want to be right. Because again, we all have loved ones that have had the medicine. So this is a very delicate issue, and I bring it up because we don't know what happened with Damar Hamlin, but the discourse around it is really what matters. And in a court of law, if you had to pick something that happened to Damar, it's either a very, very rare heart condition that has never happened on a football field before, the football injury, he had an underlying issue, or it was this. And this has a better case than those other ones, in my opinion. And that's unfortunate. Doesn't mean that it was that. And people who are saying automatically that it was that, they might be going too far too. Maybe they strongly feel that way. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. I'm just about, again, like I said with Tate, free speech. Everything should be out there. And if you're canceling stuff out of fear that's going to piss people off or hurt their feelings, well, what happened in 2020 and 2021? Because I'm pretty sure there were a lot of fear-mongering campaigns then that went a little too far in scaring people. I think it's better that we control the information somewhat. I get it. There's a lot of information. It's hard for people to handle, but they're going to be overwhelmed anyway. I think it all should be out there. And it'll be survival of the fittest. Whoever can figure it out the best will make the most of it. That's how I feel about Damar Hamlin and the way our reaction collectively is to that situation. And number 3, just like his number, is Russell Wilson. By the way, Damar Hamlin also wears number 3. And according to his tweet to Greta, Andrew Tate's got 33 cars. Make of that what you will, numbers people. Russell Wilson and the discourse surrounding him is obviously not as important as the Hamlin and Tate conversation, but it's the same overall philosophical prism. We're in 2023, and Russell Wilson just had a horrible year, by far his worst as a pro, and the media took a special joy, it seemed like, took unfair shots at him, and he didn't really get a fair shake. He was mocked relentlessly by ESPN, Barstool, NFL Network, guys like Kyle Brandt, reality TV stars like him, guys who've been on soap operas are going to call Russell Wilson a poser. Everyone channeling their inner Skip Bayless, let Russ cook memes, all these things. It's fair. You're a public figure. You got to take that. And he wasn't performing on the field, and therefore it was open season. But to think about why it occurred the way it did, well, there's a lot of reasons. And to understand it, you have to backtrack to 2012, which is a full decade ago. Russell Wilson entered the league with 2 issues. Number 1, he was short. And number 2, he was short and black. And if you know anything about the NFL quarterback position, it's the fact that black men historically were transitioned, whether it was in college, high school, middle school, from quarterbacks to other athletic skill positions under the facade of, hey, you're more athletic, go here. And while that was the case many times, it was a facade and hiding the true fact that people who ran these organizations, coached these teams, thought that the quarterback represents the team, and we need a white quarterback, specifically a tall white quarterback, to do that. And that the black quarterbacks don't have the intellect to command the team and play the position the way it was meant to be played. That was the rhetoric. That's the reason why Warren Moon, a traditional pocket quarterback, could not get into the NFL for many years. He had to go to the AFL. That's why there were not more black quarterbacks in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And then once black quarterbacks did enter the league, they had a prototype. They were half pocket, but when they really had to, they ran. And they were big and strong. Okay. So you had Donovan McNabb was the shortest one, but the rest of them, Dante Culpepper, Michael Vick, Randall Cunningham, Cam Newton, these guys had a prototype. They were not challenging the prototype or the paradigm that, hey, the quarterback's got to be tall and, tall or white or both. So Russell, to be a quarterback that's short and black, play from the pocket, and if everyone just admitted his accuracy up front, because he was incredibly accurate, it would basically say, oh, no, we were wrong all those years. People don't like to do that. The powers that be don't want that to happen. And Patrick Mahomes hadn't played yet. Patrick Mahomes didn't exist yet. In 2012, he was 6, 7 years away. The dude was in high school. So Russell was really the original baseball playing, throw off kilter, play from the pocket, and make sandlot plays. Mahomes is just better at playing from the pocket, partially due to coming into the league with Andy Reid and partially due to the fact he's a little bit taller. That does have a slight factor here. Now, where I say he was fighting a disadvantage from one angle, he was also fighting like the blood is thicker than mud episode in The Fresh Prince. If you're not aware, that's when Carlton wanted to join the black fraternity. And he did everything right. They made him do extra stuff because he lives in a big house, dresses, very fancy. And then essentially they didn't want him in there because, hey, he wasn't black enough, And I use those words intentionally because there was a story that came out. Everyone was talking about it in 2014. That was after the Seattle Super Bowl run and before the infamous interception at the goal line that basically broke the team in half. There's a story that came out, and they all dispelled the rumors. Oh, Russell Wilson's, oh, no, that's nothing. That's nothing. There's no rhetoric like that, but there was rhetoric like that because stories that came out later prove that there were issues within his own team, within his own ranks. And to this day, we know that Richard Sherman, Doug Baldwin, Mike Robinson, some of these guys had issues with Russell Wilson that I'm not going to get into right now. I've done it in the past. I'll do it again with some of my colleagues in this podcasting platform. But the bottom line is, within his own race, there were issues there. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Legion of Boom wanted credit, and they felt like Pete Carroll and some of the national media was not giving them as much credit as they were saying, oh, look, second black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and oh, Russell Wilson made the game-winning throw. And the fact they even feel that way is hilarious because of what I just said earlier, which was that he was not getting credit from the national media. And he was objectively a really, really good quarterback after his rookie year. And I think that got lost. And I think a lot of emotions and pettiness was involved. And now you bring it to current day. That's why the discourse is the way it is, especially when you say, hey, Richard Sherman's in the media now. And Richard Sherman's having temper tantrums on TV. And he's an entertaining dude. And Russell Wilson's more robotic, which is partly to be admired because he's a quarterback. But he also, even me, Russell Wilson's my favorite player. He's been my favorite player since the middle of 2012, his rookie year. I was like, this guy's accuracy, his athleticism, and his poise is just, I've never seen any combination like that. And really, until Mahomes, it's true. There was no combination of those three things like him until Mahomes came along. But Mahomes is like a mix of him and Favre, which makes him better. And Russell was more robotic. And I think because he kind of was so cliche sometimes, we're more likely to vibe with a guy like Sherman, who's overly honest. He's got a lot of flaws. People don't even know about it, but he's got a lot of flaws, some arrests, some emotional issues off the field, emotional issues on the field, and clearly there's some resentment there that, hey, Russell Wilson's getting paid all his money. Sherman's laughing at him. And the media just kind of rolled with that. And then we kind of took things that Sherman said, oh, he doesn't want to have our numbers anymore. And everyone kind of rolled with that and acted like, oh, Richard Sherman, yeah, Russell doesn't even have his team doesn't have Russell Wilson's number. It's like, no, toxic ex-teammates that wished him to lose when they left the team. He didn't have their number. Well, that makes sense. So a lot of things that happen in the media, everybody thinks they can take shots and they don't realize, like, hey, wait, the root of all this is Richard Sherman. It's kind of humorous, but also sad because it proved that, hey, this confirmation bias, this revisionist history, all of this stuff that's happening right now is rooted in either pettiness from the fact of how he left Seattle, or that they don't want to admit that he was always great. And they came into the league, that first section, and said, hey, he came into the league, he's going to be nothing. He's along for the ride, whatever. those people don't want to admit that, hey, maybe we were wrong. No, we were right this whole time. And I can admit, hey, I wish Russell Wilson didn't come off as Hollywood. I sometimes say, hey, listen, you got to be more honest. You got to be more open. You could be a quarterback, but also kind of be human. And I think there's a lot of factors at play, and I do think he's going to get better. But I can also admit that, hey, maybe I was wrong. Maybe he isn't one of the best quarterbacks to ever live, like I think he is. But I'm not doing it yet. I've seen enough signs at the end of the year that he's going to turn it around. That being said, the crux of this matter is this. In 2012, after an 8-game introduction into the league, the next 10 games, 8 games and 2 in the playoffs, Wilson had 2,712 yards, 24 touchdowns, 4 turnovers, and lost in a road playoff game against 13-3 Atlanta because the Legion of Boom could not hold a 28-27 lead to Matt Ryan with about 25 seconds left. 2 plays down a field goal, game over. Actually, no, Hail Mary, nearly caught interception by Wilson, game over. At that point in time, when you look at what he did that year, and then what happened the next year, they won the Super Bowl. And the year after, they should have won a Super Bowl and lost it. And then the next year, he had a great second half of the year without Marshawn Lynch, by the way. And after that, it all kind of dissolved. Russell Wilson, at that point in time, in 2012, end of that year, considering what came after it, he was the 5th best quarterback in the league. There was 4 other guys: Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning. And then there was Russell. And I think when Russell won that Super Bowl and then nearly won another, at that point, he was better than Peyton Manning. He was better than him on Super Bowl Sunday. He was better than him the next time they played. You could make the case he was better than Brees, because Brees over the next couple of years started winning 7 games a year, and then he bounced back, but then he kind of fell off. He was better than Tony Romo, Rivers, Roethlisberger, Eli. Those guys had things that Wilson didn't have. They did some things better, but Wilson did more things that they didn't do, and he was winning. And for those that say, well, he was a game manager, I just told you 2012. He also had a poor offensive line from 2013 onward. 2012 was solid. 2013, 14, 15, 16, below average is putting it nicely. He had a great running back, obviously. Great defense. Tough division. And a coach that loved to run the ball on neutral downs and didn't take full advantage of Russell Wilson's greatness. We have this revisionist history now, like, oh, did Pete Carroll mask all of Russell Wilson's flaws? Like, yeah, he did. Some, yes. Did he throw the ball when he should throw the ball all the time? No. Did he go for it on 4th downs at the right time? No. Did he cut Wilson short of having better volume numbers by sitting on the ball in second halves of big games? All the time. In my opinion, Pete Carroll cost Russell Wilson 1 touchdown every 2 games on average. I'm going to go with 500 yards a season. It's about 30 a game. 1 touchdown and 500 yards. So, 8 touchdowns, 500 yards per season. And over the 10-year stretch with Seattle, Russell Wilson averaged 4,178 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 turnovers. 4178, 32, 11. Those other 4 quarterbacks that I said were the only ones better than him, those other 4 quarterbacks, for their best 10-year stretches, Tom Brady, 44.99, 34.11. It's close, right? Aaron Rodgers, 4,087, 34.8. Drew Brees, 48.49, 37.16. Peyton Manning, 44.49, 36.13. Did those guys get sacked a little bit less than him? Yes. If you include sack yardage in there, he's slightly lower on yards per play. He was about 6.5 yards a play. And those guys are somewhere from, 6.6 to 7.1, something around there. But very close. He won just as many games as they did. missed 3 games in 10 years. He's about halfway to Favre's consecutive game streak when he, busted his finger on Aaron Donald's helmet. So there's a lot of very late confirmation bias. There's a lot of revisionist history. And some call it fallacy. Guys don't want to admit I was wrong about no. The overall discourse here, we need to be fair. And you can't rip on Russell for his numbers this year and not acknowledge those numbers that I gave you back then, while also saying, hey, they spent all their money on defense. They spent their money. Hey, they drafted Metcalf. Yeah, they got Lockett. Yeah, they had Lynch. But there was lots of injuries on an offensive line. They didn't draft well on the offensive line. And Pete made some questionable decisions in big games. I think as we move forward, kind of rounding this whole conversation up, we need to always remember the facts that we can prove, regardless of how you feel about football, regardless of how you feel about relationships, men and women, medicine. You got to remember, you got to consider what is provable. What do you know? What was said by this person? You saw them say it. You saw this happen. You saw these numbers. These numbers are indisputable. It is indisputable. When the CDC says something, when, the White House has a publication, when, the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum or any of these people, the FDA, these things are completely immovable. They are 1,000% verifiable. And you put them up on a board and you piece it all together. You might be facing a tide of people. You might be, hey, like those people are feeling this way. But if you have the facts on your side, if you have the best freaking case, then you have a right to state it. And if one side doesn't let you state it, or if they call you names or dismiss you for just stating it, then that is a telltale sign that you might have the winning case. But it's not about winning. It's about talking with each other and having uncomfortable conversations on all topics, regardless of your biases and your previous thoughts prior to this conversation right now. And on that note, this is Michael Stephen. I hope you all have a wonderful 2023. Peace out.